All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest in our webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about Windows Virtual Desktop and how you can empower your organization with WVD. Glad to have everyone on with us. We also have Patrick Sullivan with us. He's our expert on WVD and Cloud Workspace and is going to get into more of the details here. The agenda for today is my little quick introduction here. I'll talk like I'm talking right now, tell you a little bit about who we are here at Big Green IT. Then we'll hand off. We have a few questions we're going to ask, a couple of short polls just to gather where everybody is in their remote desktop WVD and Azure journey so far. Then we'll hand it off to Patrick, who's going to go over a few different things. We're going to do a little quick overview of Azure itself, an overview of WVD, and get a little more into how WVD works into Cloud Workspace and the modern workplace in general, and then talk about why we want to use WVD over some of the other types of technologies you may have used or experienced in the past, Citrix, old school RDS, etc. Then we'll take more Q&A and do a bit of a wrap up. A couple things to note right up front here is that we will be sending out a copy of the slide deck to everyone. So if you don't pick up on everything, don't worry about it. You're going to get copies of the slides. And also, we do have a couple people standing by to help answer questions. In the GoToWebinar tool, there's a place to do that. And any questions that are a little too involved for typing or just something that we feel would be really good to put out to everybody, the answer, obviously, we'll do that just kind of live. So feel free to ask questions along the way. You don't have to hold them to the end, but depending on how much time we have left over, we'll hang out and answer some more specific questions as well after everything's done. All right, so Big Green IT, who are we? We're a company based out of just outside of Sacramento, California. We serve Northern and Southern California, as well as Nevada. Now with Azure and Microsoft 365, we're handling a lot more business all across the country and even around the world, since so much more of our work is remote. The situation over the past several months, everybody's work is a lot more remote, but for us, this has been a way of life for quite a long time. We pride ourselves in really getting into what our customers want, what they need, how their businesses work, and spend a lot of time learning the best solutions and the right way to help people solve their problems. There's a little quick tidbit from one of our engineering firm customers from just a few weeks ago dealing with stuff here. There's some different bullet points you can see on the slide, a little more about us, our accomplishments. We've been very fortunate to have rapid growth, and we have a great team and great employees, and we've achieved a lot of success with Microsoft specifically, which is very important to how we're successful and how we can leverage Microsoft solutions in order to give you the best outcome possible. So we're really proud of that. We work with customers of all different sizes, anywhere from 50 up to 10,000 employees. Our sweet spot is kind of in the 750 to 2,000 range. But you know, there's some sample customers down here also on the same slide. You can see we pretty much cover the whole swath of businesses. I have a couple of polls that I mentioned earlier that I'd like to kick off here. The first one is whether or not you have any experience with Azure. This is just to kind of gauge if we got new customers to the cloud altogether, people coming from on-prem, maybe people coming from other clouds. We'll go ahead and leave this open for just probably, in each of these polls, probably only about 20 to 30 seconds, because there's nothing more boring than staring at my face, waiting for other people to click on stuff for all of you. So I'm watching the percentage, and once we get about half the people here voted, then we'll go ahead and kick off the next one. There's only 3, so this won't take too terribly long. And if anyone's having any difficulty seeing the poll, then go ahead and maybe put that in the chat. Yeah, okay, a few people are saying it's the poll isn't working. Jeff, Carey, is that working for you?
Carey, you're on mute.
The responses are coming in.
Oh, they are. Okay, now I'm starting to see. There's a couple of people that looked like they were having some difficulty, but yeah, now they're coming in a little bit. Is there a submit? I can't see it in front of me. Is there a submit button or something people have to press as well?
No, you just push the
Okay.
push the answer.
All right. Yeah, I think
Oh, excuse me, there is a submit button. There is a submit.
Is a submit button. Okay, got it. All right. Yeah, it looks like people are sorting it out because I got a good chunk of people have responded now. All right, good. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. So this one is, have you deployed WVD? So not Citrix or other remote technologies, but WVD specifically has been out in varying degrees in the marketplace since the fall of last year. So a lot of our clients have talked to us about it and have dived in and done some dabbling around. So if you've done any of that, please go ahead and click yes. Or if you haven't, obviously, then you click no. All right, give it about 10 more seconds here. We'll jump on to the last one and get into the meat of the program here. Okay, and then finally, if you have been one of those people that have dabbled with WVD and used it, what happened? Did you run into any of these issues? These are the top 5 issues that we have heard from our clients that have gone out and attempted to use WVD on their own, whether it was just a little proof of concept or they tried to do a full deployment. There's some really common things that people ran into that either made it difficult to deploy WVD on their own or was a complete showstopper. So this is a multiple choice. It's not a one or the other. So if you've experienced any of these in attempting to experiment with WVD or for a full rollout, please go ahead and let us know which of those they were, and we'll try and address specifically what your issues were as part of the presentation. We'll go about 30 more seconds and we can get right into it. Okay, with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand off to Patrick here. Patrick, I'm gonna make you the presenter, and there you go. It's all yours.
Excellent. And can you see my slide screen here? I'm going to do from current slide. Hopefully you can see the Azure regions. Yes?
I see them.
Perfect. Well, great. Thank you so much for allowing me to attend the presentation. I love doing these. It really helps open everyone's eyes to why we've picked Azure as far as the horse for the platform of choice. Why Microsoft, why Azure, and then what are some of the unique benefits that we can bring to the table from the Big Green IT standpoint, and how can we add value to our customers' IT stack. I think there's a couple of things that I think I want to point out before I jump right into all the why Azure pieces. We do have a really good team here. Anyone that knows Jeff Rogers, they know he's a visionary and an industry titan. Mike has done so much work up front with trying to get some of the educational pieces out and getting the word out, especially this post-COVID era. So it's very important that you have a long-term solution and that you want to be proactive instead of reactive. I'm sure we will pick up a lot of business due to folks that are just scrambling to try to make ends meet and do a quick work from home. But after the dust has settled, you really want to think about, okay, if we do go back to the office, what is it going to look like? And do we necessarily have to go back? And if you do, and if the answer is yes, then how can we maximize our potential by maybe doing either a quasi work from home, or maybe a different mindset of how you actually log in and how and where and how you actually work. I think the best way to describe work, in my opinion, work should really be what you do, not where you go. And having that as a mindset, I think, really helps set the stage for cloud in general, regardless of whatever cloud you choose. So getting into that mindset, and especially too, when you look at the millennial workers entering the workforce at a very good clip these days, there's not a single young person out there that I have met that actually enjoys physically logging hours at the office, right? They don't necessarily, and that's a broad brush that we're stroking here, but for the most part, they generally don't love the long commute in, the traffic time that we're all accustomed to. They don't necessarily like the old PC that you've given them or the hand-me-down PC. They want to use their own device, and they actually want to work whenever they choose and when they feel comfortable. There's a whole other slew of issues or wants and needs that the new workforce and that millennial piece that they're really demanding. Another big one too is the paternity leave or maternity leave. You can now extend your personal at home, especially around family. These days, it's so critical and so important, I think, to your overall work of life that you have that balance. And by working in the cloud, I mean, think of this solution no different than if you ever have used Salesforce.com or if you've used Facebook or LinkedIn or any of those cloud hosted sites. You go to a website, you log in your info, your username and password, you click go, and you're launched into the system. That's exactly what we're talking about with this modern workplace. So, sort of setting the table with that, I'd really like to focus on how we landed on Azure. We all know that there are many different cloud offerings out there. A lot of folks have heard of AWS or Amazon workspaces, and of course, everyone knows Google. Those two definitely have a nice, strong brand recognition, and they do serve their purposes in certain niche markets. But as a whole, Microsoft and Azure has put together the latest and greatest of what they're calling, we call it WVD or Windows Virtual Desktop. And what makes that so special, or why have we really chosen to go down the Windows Virtual Desktop route? There's a few different reasons. I'll list the main bullet points, and we'll dig into some of the details here as we go. Excuse me. One of them really is just around the redundancy and the overall availability of these Azure regions. So if you're in a private cloud or using a small provider, and well, maybe not 10 years ago, but 5 years ago, it was always thought that private clouds were more secure. And you don't want to go into the public cloud because of all these X, Y, or Z reasons, mainly centered around security. Well, with Azure and with Microsoft, what they've done is they've opened up their data centers and regions across 140 different countries, 60 different unique regions within the Azure workplace. So you can build in redundancy all across the globe. This makes it very key and very easy for you to add other employees to your workforce that might not necessarily be in your geographic footprint. So you might be a Boston-based company that knows that that engineer or that architect would be great, but you know what? He's got a family and he lives out in Seattle, or maybe he's from the UK and he traveled here for whatever reason. You guys met each other, you hit it off, but boy, we could never get this to work because you actually, you live across the pond. So that it allows you to bring in more skilled labor and better fits to your workplace, and making them still feel connected into the workplace if they're physically not there in the office. So again, Azure, the availability, the redundancy, another big reason why we chose Microsoft and Windows Virtual Desktop is just around the licensing. So most folks have Office 365 today, but with Windows Virtual Desktop, you actually need M365, not O365. So it's a little upgrade in the license or a little change in SKU. But what that does is when you get M365 licensing, that actually will include your Windows Virtual Desktop license. So you're already halfway there by just having Office alone. Windows Virtual Desktop eliminates the need for an RDS cal, and that's a technical way of saying to be able to license that cloud server that's being hosted somewhere else. Now, instead of having two separate licensing models, Microsoft has actually combined them into one. So you basically have one master profile that someone is managing for you via Big Green IT, right? Or said IT department. If you're a big enough staff and you have your own IT department, but you've got Big Green on the back end doing some of the other more technical things, but you've got an in-house IT guy that can still do a lot of that tier 1 and tier 2 support, we can actually give you folks a lot of that control in-house. So I think Azure, as far as they own the licensing anyways, so if you are going to deploy or provision into Google or Amazon, you have to know that a lot of those licensing costs you're actually paying back to Microsoft anyways. An example I like to give, and I'm full of just real life examples that I try to help hit home for people that might not be super technical. We live in the technical weeds every day, so it's very easy for us to get on a tangent and talk super technical and lose the audience. But I would see that as Home Depot and Lowe's, and if you're Lowe's, you have to buy your lumber from Home Depot. At some point that runs out. So what I'm saying here is Azure and Microsoft, they own the licensing. He who makes the gold makes the rules. Their competitors are actually feeding them as they get Office 365 users to try to deploy in the cloud. And I think it's very important to note that Windows Virtual Desktop as a whole today will only run in Azure. That, for the most part, won't be the forever story. At some point, they will have to, just what we've seen in the past on exclusivity pieces. You will see them open it up to AWS and to Google, but for today, you can only deploy WVD in Azure. So it's a great place to start, I think. And not to mention too, some of the bigger names that have already deployed in Azure, i.e. Department of Defense. In my opinion, if it's good enough for the Department of Defense for security, then that's probably a cloud that I also want to strongly look at. And then the next two slides are just nice visuals. They show you some of the market share as far as who has what. And you'll see Azure actually has a smaller piece today. AWS, they really got started before everybody else from the cloud offering. You've got others, which include, maybe private clouds or co-locations. And then you've got Google here, which is a small piece, very niche market, but we all know that there are plenty of shops that just love Google for whatever reason, whether it's through their Gmail or they just love the Google platform, and it is a really good, solid platform. It just won't run on virtual desktop today. And then you'll see here the growth rate. We actually see that Azure is by far winning out on the race as far as the growth rate. So as people work from home and we get that modern workplace, you can really see that Azure is going to dominate with the market share over time. Okay, so now Windows Virtual Desktop, right? Some of the big pillars of why WVD. It's really the only multi-session Windows 10 experience out there. Today, if you're provisioned in the cloud, you're probably on an RDS or remote desktop services offering, which looks and feels like a Windows 10 or a Windows 7, but it's not. It's actually a server skinned as that look and feel of a true Windows 10 or Windows 7. So what does that mean? Do I really care if I'm the end user? Well, your performance is definitely better when you're on a true Windows operating system. Your applications were, for the most part, and again, this doesn't always hold for 100%. I like to live in the 80-20 rule. 80% of your businesses, the line of business applications, were specifically made for your Windows operating systems. So in theory, your applications will run better. It's going to be a better experience, better performance, and overall easier to set up because it's true Windows 10. So you're getting the best of both worlds there, and you're getting multi-session. So your cloud costs in general should come much lower than they would be 3 or 4 years ago when we could not do multi-session and you were stuck with one person to one virtual machine. These days, we can put multiple bodies on a large machine and have you have the end users actually sharing out those resources. And if you have somebody that's the resource hog, or you have that person in the office that refuses to listen to the rules, we all know somebody out there that marches to the beat of their own drum, right? And They'll stream video, they'll go on YouTube, they'll watch the ball game, and that can really lead to a bad experience or a poor performance experience if you have that multi-session. So we can put some of those bad actors or some of those heavier power users on their own server, thus giving everybody the experience that they want. And at the end of the day, moving to the cloud or Windows Virtual Desktop shouldn't be a new way of, I have to learn how to work or I have to learn how to use this new desktop. You're just able to log into your desktop from any device. So it actually makes your endpoint really obsolete. Who cares what happens? I mean, unless it's your own personal device, of course, you've spent some good money on it. But if it's the company's device and you, if it falls off the desk, if you spill coffee on it, if you forget it at home, it's not really that big of a deal. Because you can, as long as you have internet connectivity, I have my phone, I've got my iPad. I personally could not sit on a phone and do 8 hours of work on a cell phone. Some folks can. The point is if you forget your main device, you're not just SOL for the day. You can actually just grab another computer, get to that login screen, username and password, and you're remotely secured into the environment. So some of these other topics here, as far as Windows 10 Enterprise, M365 apps, that's all really encompassing and tells the overall story of Windows Virtual Desktop. Okay, modern workplace. I borrowed this, I kind of cobbled this slide deck together. So you'll see we've taken some other vendors' slides and you'll see some other logos on here, but I thought this one was very important to point out as far as the overall stack. And I think a company is only as good as their vendors and their technology stack. And here with Big Green IT, we actually try to get the best in class, and we do a lot of homework up front before we actually just sign up with any said vendor. So we're not pulling vendors out of the phone book or just randomly selecting them. There's a rhyme and reason why we've actually gone down this path. One of our pillars is this virtual desktop service. So it's what we're talking about today, and it's available on Azure. Some of the other products that we can bolt on to make your experience better are some of the ones that are featured here, such as Cloud Insights. This is a great little monitoring tool, and we've got I'll come back to the slide in a sec. This is the dashboard of Cloud Insights. It's a little noisy here, but it allows our team or your IT department to quickly look and see, hey, Johnny's using a lot of CPU, or somebody's session is hung, or boy, we're starting to run out of storage. It gives you that the monitoring and that easy access, simple UI that you can look and quickly tell exactly what's going on in the environment. So getting back to some of these other bolt-on products, Cloud Compliance. This is a piece of software that we can run in your environment. It'll scan documents and it'll let you know very quickly if you're out of compliance given your industry. We all know that the regulations are tighter than ever these days. So working remotely has its people will pose a lot of questions about security and can I log in from this device and what happens if the device gets stolen. All of those things, WVD tells a really good story on how to protect that data. Your data is encrypted at rest and at transit. We always bolt on two-factor authentication. I've heard that over time it'll actually, instead of getting a text or a push on your phone, the next iteration of this technology is actually going to be like eye and face movement. So rather than putting in a 4-digit code, you'll actually move your eyes across the screen to open it up. So just from the geek inside of me, I thought that was really cool. A little scary how fast they're moving with the technology, but it's cool to know that your data is so much more secure when you physically have to do those movements and only you know those movements, versus if someone hacked into your data or they stole your laptop, well, they would have to know those eye movements. It's making it harder and harder for the bad guys to come in and steal your data. Another big one too on security while I'm thinking about it is reverse connect. So with traditional RDS or remote desktop services, when you have remote servers in the cloud, you actually have open ports that are basically there. It's like an open door, leaving your house door open and hoping that the bad guys or anyone that's not supposed to come in doesn't come in. With WVD and the reverse connection technology, it actually has no open ports to the internet, and it allows your virtual machine, when you put in your username and password, we have a global session broker that will basically travel to the right collection of virtual machines. They'll get authenticated there. They'll come back through a secure pipe right into your now virtual machine, so it knows that John Smith has rights to this desktop and this set of applications. So the reverse connect piece is a huge, huge security upgrade or enhancement that only Windows Virtual Desktop has. We've got a cloud backup service that we like to add on at times. Azure NetApp files. So this is a really good one for performance. So if you have a lot of data, and a lot of companies these days have terabytes and terabytes of data that they're dragging around for whatever reason, give it compliancy or just natural growth, Azure NetApp files can really help with everything from log on, log off times to your virus scanning to any of those apps that were attached to your virtual machines. It helps with the roaming profiles. So that's just a fancy way of saying it makes your environment that much faster and snappier. So when you're looking to connect to your desktop, you're not sitting around waiting for things to load. If you happen to log in and you're now on server 2 instead of server 1, it's automatic.
Uh-oh.
Your profile will automatically know this is John and he needs access to these applications. So Azure NetApp after I've gone through maybe another ancillary vendor. This cloud sync tool allows you to seamlessly migrate over to our system. Okay. I got a little note that my internet quality was degraded, so let me know if I get choppy or anything.
Yeah, we lost your audio for just a little bit of that, for about 20 seconds, but you're back now.
Cool.
And we could see you talking. We just couldn't hear anything.
Hopefully you can read lips. You didn't miss much. I was droning on about WVD in general. So I covered some of this on the last slide, but I think it's really important to hit some of the basics and make sure we all walk away from this demonstration or this PowerPoint knowing what the value of WVD is. It's not just the next hot product. It's a newer product to the Microsoft family for sure, but it has been likened to, if people remember Lotus Notes or the death of Lotus Notes. No one ever thought that Office 365 was here and here to stay. And anyone that remembers Lotus Notes, it was really great. And then Office 365 came and almost overnight, Lotus Notes went away. Same thing for Windows Virtual Desktop. They are claiming, they being Microsoft, are claiming it is the last version of Windows that you will ever have to buy. Very similar to Office 365. You're not these days going and buying a new version of Office off of Staples or Best Buy, or you're not buying the next version year after year. You're getting upgraded and paying for it as a service. Very similar to WVD with Windows Virtual Desktop. It's as a service. And then again, the multi-session piece supporting true Windows 10 is just a killer for performance and app performance as well. Okay, again, hitting home some of WVD speak and some of the global things of why or what you need to look out for. There's really a couple of different paths you can use. You can, of course, go the direct route right into Microsoft. You have to be a PowerShell wizard, to say the least. You really have to have that, I'd call it a luxury set of technicians or a luxury set of employees, meaning you have someone that knows PowerShell very well. They don't miss a lot of work, because if something goes wrong with the environment and they're not there, very hard to quickly catch someone up to speed with PowerShell. They hold a lot of that tribal knowledge. Very similar with option 2, Citrix or a VMware environment. These environments work wonderful once they're set up and they're set up correctly. Okay, so we all know that Citrix, or if you don't have experience with Citrix, it's very complex and very costly. Runs like a dream, but you have to pay an arm and a leg for it, quite honestly. And it's very, very complex to be able to manage long term. So They've also injected a lot of their own secret sauces into the mix. So if you ever want to pull out of the Citrix realm and go either native or go to with Microsoft directly, unfortunately, you're rebuilding that environment. So there's a lot of downfalls with going with the big incumbent, the popular name of Citrix. We feel like here we've built a better mousetrap, and we leverage companies like CloudJumper and like NetApps of the world, like FS Logics. We leverage a lot of the tools that Microsoft has built into Windows Virtual Desktop to give that overall solution, to give that true TSP, that total service provider option to our customers. So there's a lot to take away on this slide. I think the most important really is that reverse connect piece and all around security. And these days, I think a lot of firms are rebranding themselves from being just IT companies really to being security companies. Okay. And then the three big takeaways. What makes us different from everyone else? How do we help you evolve as a company? How do we give you your time back and not make you worry about IT on a day-to-day, or not make you feel like you're paying for a service that you never use? Hopefully with Windows Virtual Desktop, it's one of those things that once you've experienced it and you've done it the right way, you can almost never go back. I've been working in the cloud now for 7+ years. I don't know how I would ever physically log hours at an office anymore. I've got a nice work balance. I see my family much more often. I'm able to take a walk in the middle of the day, but I'm also working later at night. So it's all about that balance for me. And the three big takeaways of why VDS or Virtual Desktop Service is so powerful, especially with Big Green IT, are these three buckets right here. The deployment. We cut down the deployment time from 40 hours to about 4. So if you wanted to sign up for Virtual Desktop Service today, we could literally have the environment up and running by the end of today, have users imported, not necessarily have you running all your applications, but you could definitely log into a virtual desktop this afternoon. And that's all through the automation with the software that we're using. So a lot of that upfront cost and the complex networking, we've got that automated and we've got it down so we can actually scale and help you folks grow. Same with the management and operations. So now if you have that internal IT staff and you want to do some of that, if you want to take on some of that responsibility for changing passwords, unlocking an account, dropping in an application, you certainly have the power to do so. And then the overall reduced spend. So we haven't even really gotten into some of the power of the software, and the software that we're using allows you to do things such as wake on demand, live scaling, and workload scheduling. Wake on demand is a patented technology that our software vendor allows us to basically let people into the environment when it's off. So why is that a big deal? Well, in Azure or in any public cloud, as you have the servers or virtual machines on, you're actually spending money. They charge you as those machines are on. Very similar to your electricity company. When you have the light switch on, you're paying for that electricity. So what's the state of nirvana? What goal? Where do we want to get to long term? And we want to get to a place where our end users or our customers are logging in, they're working productively from anywhere across the globe. And the minute that they shut off or log off and no one else is in the system, we want that environment to quickly turn off, to stop the billing in its tracks, and you're only paying for what you use. And that's never really been a reality until today. So by shutting those servers down and giving some or all users access to that environment outside of those hours that we set as a team can really help drive that spend down. So you as the end user now do not have that bouncing ball of IT. You're not afraid to call the IT company, or you're not concerned about opening a ticket because it's now going to cost you a lot, or what else might they find that's wrong, and now all of a sudden I'm staring at a $10,000 bill because they found all these extra problems. You know, reducing spend and getting to a fixed fee cost is definitely something that is more enjoyable for both parties. You can expect that expense, and you can actually grow and plan for today and tomorrow and the future ahead because you know roughly what your IT spend is going to be. So those three things right there, I think, are the biggest pillars of what sets us apart from anyone else that's trying to deliver Windows Virtual Desktop. So yes, other IT companies can provide WVD. They cannot do it at the cost or the level of spend that we do because we're using all those automated tools. They cannot deploy it in nearly as much as quick as in a time period as we do, given the technology and the automation we provisioned. And then the day-to-day operations and management. They certainly do not have the ability to monitor, maintain, and ultimately give you access to the environment whenever you'd like. So we really pride ourselves in getting together the right stack of vendors and being able to translate that down into simple IT speak for any company, large or small, regardless of industry. And then this slide here, I really wanted to show it piggybacks off of that other slide showing there's really a few different routes you can go down. We've chosen the native Microsoft route. And the reason why we've chosen that, there's a couple of different neat takeaways here. There's no vendor lock-in. So if you decided that, Windows Virtual Desktop was not for you, or it just wasn't working out, you're not tied into some long-term technology play like you would be for Citrix or VMware. And we do try to stay up to date with all of the Microsoft going on. So when they come out with new machine types, when they come out with faster, better ways to do things, we can actually turn around and pass that cost savings down to you. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we don't have to change our technology roadmap because we're already hitched to Microsoft. So we really do feel strongly that Microsoft is the key here as far as the backbone. And then having us deliver those services on top of Microsoft and making it easy for you folks to do what you enjoy best, regardless of your niche or your industry. The last thing that your 80%ers want to deal with is IT, or have to even think about it for a moment, how it's connected. You just want to be able to use your regular laptop or any company device and get access to the files when you want them. So I think that's pretty much at the end of my dog and pony there.
Yeah.
Mike, were there any questions for me that came in, or does anyone have any questions they want to shout out to?
So let's see, I'm going to answer a couple of questions real quick here. One of them was on the differences between Horizon, Horizon View, and WVD. I think I answered it, plus you touched on it as well. Essentially, it's an on-premise versus a fully cloud environment, and as well as a bunch of other things. We've been, as a company, we've been doing Horizon because we're a big VMware shop. We always have been. So we have lots of experience, and we can get down into the weeds of some of the specific things we run into. Another question we have here is we can spin up WVD in 4 hours, and the Azure environment is your own Azure environment. So while we're looking at potentially putting out a turnkey desktop as a service sort of product for customers that are interested in that sort of thing, that isn't what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is helping you to deploy WVD in your own Azure environment. We do provide support for Azure environments. We'd love to handle the management and the billing of it for you, but we're not. But it's your environment. This is not a multi-tenant situation. We're not trying to just sell you another desktop. The point today of talking about WVD is this is universal to anyone using Azure, any WVD customer. We do have some tools that we use to help automate, deploy, and manage WVD, but one of the main reasons that we select the tools we do select is that they are optional add-ins that can enhance your experience. These are not tightly woven into your environment to the point where it doesn't work without it, or if you decided to stop using Cloud Workspace, it breaks. We're not that sort of organization. We're not looking for that kind of a lock-in with our clients. We provide help, we provide support, and we provide knowledge and expertise, but we don't do that at the expense of making you make a lifetime decision that you're going to regret down the road. So the last thing here, WVD system patched monthly. So your Windows OS, so you can have, you're asking kind of about gold images in WVD, and you can use your own gold image if you have an image that you want to go ahead and push out that's specifically configured for your environment, or you can grab. There's a couple of images out there that are Windows 10 or Windows 10 plus Office 365. Those guest operating systems, or excuse me, it's not a guest because it's actually Windows. That operating system patching and management is yours. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but I'm pretty sure there's no back end hypervisor level sort of management of the Windows 10 OS running on your WVD hosts. So it's basically left up to auto update to run all that stuff. Obviously, anything that's the hardware on the back end is all managed by Azure the way the rest of the infrastructure is. But the Windows 10 OS, honestly, we never talk about it, but one of the things that makes WVD work properly is the robustness of just Windows Update these days. You lock Windows Update into an enterprise level release schedule, not the bleeding edge first one out, but you lock it into a normal enterprise update schedule on Windows Update and it just runs. This even all other technology being equal, this would have been much harder to do 6-7 years ago when every Windows update was a roll of the dice, and you don't know if if things are gonna come back up again the next morning. So that's a big part of it. But to answer your question, the Windows operating system, once you deploy WVD, the Windows operating system on the hosts is managed through Windows Update and through your own policies. We'll take more questions as they come out, but right now I'll go ahead and switch the presenter back to myself. Hopefully everyone should see the same exciting screen we had when we left. I'm just about done here. A couple other things to touch on. So we talked a little bit about what licensing, the advantages of licensing specifically in WVD, and the fact that a lot of Microsoft 365 customers already own WVD as an entitlement to the package they have, and they either they don't know it or they don't use it, or it was just part of the package and it's already there for free. So there's a link. When you get the slide deck, that blue link at the bottom is actually a hyperlink, so that takes you right to the full list of Microsoft 365 packages that include WVD. Also, while we're on the subject of licensing, one of the things that we like to do as an organization is make sure that our customers are using the right licenses for their enterprise or small business or medium-sized business, using the right packages. So we're experts on all the Microsoft and Office 365 license packages, what comes with what, how do we license different users in the organization to make sure they're not over-licensed and paying for things they don't need. It's another reason why we really like to learn a lot about what our customers do, why they do it, how they do it, and help make them make the right decisions. There's a lot of words on this slide, but whatever your Microsoft licensing situation is now, from enterprise agreements to nonprofits to the different bundles that are available, we specialize in that, and we handle that sort of work every day. So please get in touch if there's anything there that we can help you with. And then finally, there are no presentation would be good without some promotions. So there are some specific promos, and I'm putting stuff in the middle of my screen, aren't I? There we go. There are some promotions here that are specific to the Azure NetApp Files service that Patrick touched on. In a WVD deployment, you got to put your files somewhere, and we can do it all the different ways. Again, this is not a use it or lose it, or this isn't a situation where what we've been talking about only works if you do it a certain way. But with your profile files that have to be somewhere in WVD, there's 3 different ways to do it. We can do it on a file server, you can do it directly in Azure Files, or you can use Azure NetApp Files. The performance improvements that come with Azure NetApp Files are kind of beyond the scope of this particular call, but there are a lot of them, and it's really a great fit, match made in heaven. Yet another reason why we've been successful with WVD is what Azure NetApp Files actually brings to the table. So 3 different promotions with new WVD deployments where we're using Cloud Workspace to manage it. Rather than an unknown time and materials, who knows how long it's going to take to get your WVD deployed, Big Green will do that for a flat one-time fee of $9.95. If any of you have dabbled in WVD, if you spent more than 3 or 4 hours just playing around, you know that we can come in and go ahead and do the whole thing for a flat fee. Also, any deployments, and that's without, you don't even need Azure NetApp Files for that promotion. That's just true of all WVD and Cloud Workspace deployments. We'll just do that for a flat fee. If you are using NetApp Files, you can get 50 of the Cloud Workspace licenses and 10 for global file cache. That's a It's a product that allows you to use files all over the globe and have them actually stay in sync and have file locking. So if you have multiple locations, you can actually have an AutoCAD file open in Chicago, and when the user in New York tries to modify it, they won't be able to, all kept in sync. But those licenses come for free as part of that Azure NetApp Files deployment. And then finally, for larger, or even not even that large, but larger deployments, when you're using WVD with Azure NetApp Files, that instead of that $9.95 for setup, we'll just do your installation for free for you as part of this promotion. And then something we usually talk about on our 365 webinars, it's our so actually that's on the next slide. Apologize. Just another point out there at the bottom that you may already be licensed for WVD now if you have Microsoft 365. And then finally, if you'd like to learn more about any of this stuff, please go ahead and reach out to us. We can do a full-blown technical assessment with one of our engineers, or we can do a pricing analysis and show you, we've asked some questions about what your workloads are, who the users are that are using it, what your requirements are as far as time of day and when you need to be logged on and whatnot, and give you a really good detailed pricing estimate of what it would cost to use WVD in your environment. And then here's what I was starting to get into before. We have a COVID-19 relief offer for new clients where you can get up to a month's worth of free Microsoft or Office 365 service, and the details to take advantage of that are right there. And again, you'll get that as part of the slide deck. And with that, that's the end here. Let's take a look and see. I don't have any new questions, but we've got about 3 more minutes here if anyone would like to ask. Any questions of any of us? And if not, then I guess that's it. So Patrick, anything else you'd like to say before we go and wrap it up?
Nothing that's jumping out at me, but if anyone has any other questions after, I know it's like drinking from the fire hose, right? And sometimes you don't come up with the question till after, just send Mike an email and he'll get it into my hands and we'll certainly talk about it. But we want to be your trusted advisor. So there's no dumb questions. If you didn't quite get what WVD is, or you want to dig into any part of this presentation, just let us know. We'd be happy to jump on a call.
Awesome, great. Well, thanks everyone, and hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.